all of a sudden I come across this man I never met, this man I never knew in my life who now wanted to enter into my life. But for me, it was like, what right do you have to enter into my life now?
Every emotion in me cried out for revenge. I kind of felt that I should reach out, and slap him on the face. Maybe even spit on his face.
If you have a story that you find yourself repeating over and over again about what someone else has done to hurt you, then the Forgive to Live seminar is just the program for you.
Here you will learn not only the benefits you can receive by forgiving, but you will also get very practical guidelines on how to forgive.
So you can let go of your past and move on toward a new and more exciting future.
I had read somewhere that when you forgive someone, you release him from your condemnation. This man had been condemned by me. I was angry. I wanted to do something to him. But it was at that point that I decided that I would forgive him.
To say that, is there joy? Is there happiness? Is there contentment in one's life? Is there peace when one forgives? Absolutely, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Dick Tibbetts, and I'm the author of Forgive to Live. I want to personally thank you for making the decision to attend this seminar and explore how forgiveness can change your life. I will be your guide as we study the material contained in each lesson, along with Dr. William, who will provide us with the science behind the material we will be studying together. You will also have an on-site facilitator who will lead your group in doing the exercises and in answering the questions in your workbook. I invite you to share your thoughts with each other, for your group will be richer as a result of hearing a wide range of ideas and shared experiences. So let me be the first to wish you the best as you discover how forgiveness can transform your life. We have all been hurt at one time or another by someone we worked with, been married to, by friends or family members. So what do you do when someone causes you harm? Well, I have no way of knowing what you actually do. I'm pretty sure that forgiveness is not the first thing that will come to your mind. In fact, for most people, it may be the last thing they consider. And even when suggested, you may have a number of reasons why you choose not to forgive. The truth is, it is hard to forgive when you have been the victim of someone else's words or actions against you. You might wonder, why should I forgive? I was not the one who did anything wrong. If anyone needs to do something, it's the one who hurt me. They need to admit their mistake and say they are sorry. Only then will I consider forgiveness. Otherwise, I will hold on to my hurts and resentments. Ever felt this way before? We all have. Forgiving someone who has harmed us seems so unfair. When bad things happen in our lives, most of us respond in predictable ways. Have you ever found yourself doing one of the following? 1, we try to get an apology from the other person, and then we feel additional hurt when the other person not only won't apologize, but refuses to even respond in helpful ways. Or 2, when we tell others of the injustices, hoping they can change the circumstances, or at the least, empathize with our situation. 3, over time, our hurt turns into anger and then into resentment, and we start to fantasize about revenge, even though it is unlikely you will ever follow through on your plan. And finally, we withdraw from the person who hurt us and maybe even from life in general, all the time blaming the other person for our circumstances. So what should you do when someone else has hurt you deeply? You basically have two choices. You can blame them for your problems, or you can forgive. These choices are illustrated in the creation story found in the book of Genesis. Here, we find the first ever recorded offense. And while God came ready to offer forgiveness, both Adam and Eve went straight to blame. The woman you created, she made me eat the fruit. Or, the serpent deceived me. And we have been choosing blame over forgiveness ever since. When life doesn't treat you fairly, will you blame others or will you forgive? That is the essential question you must answer. Blame says, what happened is your fault. Therefore, the misery in my life is your fault. In short, my life is your fault. Learning to blame others for my problems started early in my life as well. On the wall next to the breakfast table was a wooden plaque. And on the plaque were 5 hooks, one for the daddy dog, one for mommy dog, and one for each of the 3 puppies. Boldly printed on the collar of each dog was the name of each member of our family. 4 of the hooks were outside the doghouse, and one was smack inside the doghouse. Each morning at breakfast, our family would discuss the previous day's happenings, and then took a family vote about who belonged in the doghouse that day. Well, as you may have guessed, I spent most of my childhood in the doghouse. I learned early in life that the first order of business was not to fix the problem, but to figure out who to blame. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Yet that is exactly what most people do every day. We rarely figure out how to fix the problem, rather we are more focused on who to blame. And it is so easy to blame others for my problems. Blame makes sense. After all, it was the other person's words or actions that created my problem in the first place. So how about you? Have you discovered what you can do to improve your situation? Or like a rusty old weather vane stuck in one position, is your finger still pointed toward the ones who have hurt you? But before you get too comfortable with blame as the solution to your problems, let's take a closer look at what blame actually does. Blame starts with the premise that what happened in my life is your fault. Most of us can live with that. But this way of thinking is a problem, for it leads to the belief that in order for my life to get better, the other person must do something for me. The subtle message is there is nothing I can do to improve my life. And it is this thought process that creates victims who are stuck in life, waiting for someone else to rescue them. For you see, the key is to recognize that my ongoing suffering is my problem and no one else's. Sure, it would be nice if the other person would help, but at the end of the day, it is still my problem to fix. The simple truth is blame doesn't work. Rather, like an addiction, it makes you feel better at first, but in the long run, it destroys your life. For when you blame someone else, you are in fact giving that person, the person who has already shown you that they don't care, control over your life, or at least your emotional life. Do you really believe the other person will care enough to want to make your life better? How has that worked for you? Not a great strategy for success. But at some point, the issue is no longer what the other person did to you in the past that's the problem. Rather, it is what you are doing to yourself each and every day that is the problem. And if blame prevents you from acting to improve your life, then how can you hang that on the other person? The only one who can fix your broken life is yourself. It is helpful to keep in mind that other people act the way they do because of their circumstances and how they have learned to cope with life. Their actions toward you have more to do with their needs than with what you need. You need to accept that reality and take actions that will benefit you. Remember, it is their personality faults that are on display, not yours. But what you do next says more about you than it does about them. So take back control over your life. To do so, the first thing you need to do is to change your view of the other person as the all-powerful one, and instead, see the other person for who they really are, a person with weaknesses who acted poorly. For example, if someone abused you, chances are that person was also abused. Now, that doesn't make their actions toward you justified, but it may explain why they acted the way they did. And while you may wish they had been strong enough to break the cycle of abuse, it may be that you will need to demonstrate the strength they failed to exercise by breaking that cycle of abuse yourself. The other problem with blame is that you will tend to see the world in all or nothing terms, and so you see the person who harmed you as all bad. Let me illustrate. You have heard the expression, love is blind. I got in touch with what this expression means when my daughter brought home her first high school date. She was in love with this guy. So, being the responsible person that I am, I decided to do my homework on him and discovered a number of flaws in his character. When I shared them with my daughter, she simply could not or would not see them. Why didn't she notice these obvious faults? The answer is, love truly is blind. When you are in love, you only see the good points in the other person. You overlook their faults. Well, the truth is, anger is equally as blind. For when you are upset with someone, you will only see that person's bad points. I see this happen when my wife gets upset at me. She rattles off all the bad things I've ever done, like they just happened yesterday. When I hear this list, I begin to wonder if she even loves me anymore. And if you are upset enough, you will see nothing good in the other person at all. Thankfully, my wife does not come to that conclusion. Put simply, when you like someone, you tend to focus on that person's good points. And when you do not like someone, you tend to focus on their bad characteristics. This is how your best friend can become your worst enemy simply by what you choose to focus on. Whereas before you focused primarily on their good attributes, after they hurt you, all you can see is the things you don't like about them. And here is the paradox. Your worst enemy is someone else's best friend. The truth is, we are all a mixture of good and bad. How you see another person depends on what you focus on. So what do you want to focus on? The good or the bad in this world? Remember, what you look for is what you will see. Focusing only on the unpleasant things in life can paralyze you, leaving you unable to deal with life's difficulties or experience life's joys. Want to know what you can do to stop the blame game? Join me after the break as we look at specific things you can do to end the blame and to begin to take your life back.
Hi, my name is Dr. Marsha William. I've trained in psychiatry and am currently working in neuroscientific research. I'm here today to provide a medical perspective for the Forgive to Live seminar. All of us at some point in our lives have been on the receiving end of a hurtful situation that has caused great disappointment and emotional wounding. At these times, it can be difficult to understand why the one that has caused the offence acted the way they did. The truth is that the offender may be acting poorly as a response to their own deep wounding from offences committed against them. Emotional pain such as rejection, humiliation, shame or abandonment can be so intense that we naturally seek to self-protect the wounds we receive so as to diminish the pain that we feel. But the problem is that the methods we choose to self-protect with may lead to unhealthy behaviours that can cause havoc in our personal lives. I remember seeing a young girl in the emergency department who had broken her arm after a nasty fall. She was lying very still on the bed, looking at me with great apprehension as I walked toward her. She was afraid that I might move her arm and cause further pain. It took a lot of careful negotiating before she was comfortable enough to let me examine her arm. She was holding her arm against her chest to keep it still because this was her way of reducing her physical pain. But her method of protecting her arm, although suitable for short-term relief, was not suitable for long-term healing of her broken bones. When we are emotionally wounded, we often use maladaptive self-protective methods to reduce our emotional pain. This may work in the short term, but it will not be effective in the long term. There are several methods used to self-protect our emotional wounds. To simplify, let's examine these methods under 3 domains. The first domain centres around the internal dialogue we use to justify protecting our emotional pain by talking ourselves into believing that we need to do something that gives us comfort and pleasure to ward off the unpleasant feelings we experience. Such activities can be quite compulsive when triggered by deep emotional hurt and include things like emotional comfort eating, taking addictive drugs, or engaging in ongoing unhealthy sexual practices. I once saw a patient who, as a victim of sexual abuse, admitted that since her horrible experiences, she would deliberately overeat and put on excessive weight to make herself appear undesirable, as a way of protecting herself against unwanted attention from men. This is an example of maladaptive self-protection that occurs because of deep emotional wounding. The second domain centres around the internal dialogue we use to talk ourselves into believing that in order to feel better about ourselves, we need to be like someone else that appears to us to be more in control and successful at life. We may then try to self-protect by idolising someone else's appearance, their lifestyle, their possessions and status. Not only can this leave us resenting others due to jealousy, but through continually seeking to escape our own reality, we can begin to lose our sense of identity and capacity to connect with others. The third domain centres around the internal dialogue we use to talk ourselves into believing that in order to feel better about ourselves, we need to feel more powerful than those around us, to be more in control and therefore less insecure about who we are. We may then try to self-protect by controlling others through manipulation, criticism, or aggressive behaviour. All these methods are pretty destructive to our physical, mental, and spiritual health and can cause countless forms of offence towards others around us. As you take steps in the journey of forgiveness and letting go of blame, it is sometimes helpful to understand along the way that the one offending you may very well be struggling as much as you are with life. They may be using one of the common default mechanisms of self-protection described to prevent further pain from their own wounds. It just so happens that you are on the receiving end of this poor behaviour. Having greater insight into the reasons behind the offender's poor behaviour can help us understand that the offender is not all-powerful after all, but prone to weaknesses and poor choices like every other human being. This knowledge helps us take back control of our lives. It also disempowers the hold the offender still has on us, giving us the capacity to forgive.
Are you ready to break the cycle of disappointment you experience from others? Then the first thing you need to do is to lower your expectations. The less you expect of someone, the less you feel disappointed when that person does something or fails to do something you hoped they would do. Learning to accept the following 3 truths will help you lower your expectations. First, people make mistakes. Don't be surprised when they do. Second, people will do what they want to, and that is not always what you want them to do. And finally, people do not have to do what you want them to do, no matter how much you try to control the situation. The truth is, it is hard enough to control yourself, let alone control others. As hard as it may be, it is necessary to let others be who they are, while you work on who you need to be. And if what they do hurts, then focus on how you will respond, not on what you expected them to do. And if you need to let go of the person because they will constantly disappoint you, then do so. Letting someone too close to you who will not respect you is not forgiveness. It is simply not wise. If refusing to forgive leaves us holding the bag, then why don't more people forgive? Most people refuse to forgive because they fear that by doing so, they will let the other person off the hook. Their thinking goes like this: he did me wrong, and if I forgive him, I'll be letting him get away with it. So why should I let him off the hook? Does this sound at all familiar to you? And even if you can't literally punish the other person, then at least you can penalize that person in your head. Well, not really. For in truth, the only person being punished by you holding on to your experience is yourself. The other person has most likely moved on with their life. Remember, no matter what has happened to you, it has happened in the past. And the only reason this event is still alive is that you are still recalling it. Let me ask you, can you change the other person by continuing to think about them? Not in the least. So while you are attempting to keep the other person on the hook for what they did to you, the only person on the hook is you. Maybe it is time you consider forgiveness as a better way of dealing with this problem. In the end, forgiveness is the assertion that an offense that has spoiled your past will not ruin your present or destroy your future. Realize that while you will have to face many challenges in life, you are not alone. Others have journeyed through circumstances similar to yours. When you feel like you are the only one who is going through a terrible ordeal, it is helpful to give thanks that you are not going through something even worse. Look around you. There is always someone who is suffering more than you. Be thankful that no matter what problems you have to deal with, they could always be worse. I may hate the problems I have, but I will take my problems over those of some other people any day. How you respond to the difficulties of life is your choice, a choice that will make all the difference in the world. Forgiveness is always the better option to bring healing to your life. Are you ready to forgive so that you can live life to its fullest? Like changing a habit, it may seem awkward at first, but stick with it. You will soon experience the many benefits of forgiveness as your life improves. Clearly, forgiveness offers you a very different approach to life. While blame focuses on the hurt of the past and wishes life could be better, forgiveness teaches you to accept what you cannot change. It gives you the opportunity to move ahead despite the pain of your past. Know, however, that forgiveness will take time and it requires some difficult work, so be patient with yourself as you begin this journey. And don't forget, we are here to help you. Your facilitator will now walk you through Session 1 in your workbook. Take time to discuss the questions and share your thoughts with other members of your group. As you do, you will identify forgiveness strategies that work. Keep in mind that forgiveness is a journey. It is more than simply saying the words, "I forgive you." It is a process, but I can assure you it is a process that works. I know it works, for it has worked for thousands of others who have taken this journey and followed the principles you will learn in this seminar. And it has worked for me. So, let's begin your journey as you open to Section 1 in your workbooks.